Hello, pre-algebra students. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're good. Don't forget you have a test tomorrow, but it's a full test, so you don't need your notes. If you get out set 53 to grade or 54, oh, yeah, 54 to grade, sorry. 54 to grade, then we will get going. Ask the sub to pause for a sec if you need to. All right, here goes. So on set 54, number 2, your two proportions should be 80 horses to 320 guineas or 320 guineas to 80 horses. When you go to figure out how much 320 horses would cost, you start with 320 horses over 1. You multiply by the rate that converts horses into guineas by cross-canceling the horses, and you reduce a little bit. And hopefully you see something like 1,280 guineas as an answer. If you forgot your units, throw a G on there, but don't mark it wrong. Number 4, you should have a translation of 0.6x equals 72. That must be there. You should be showing algebra, dividing both sides of the equations out by 0.6. Then, if you need to go off to the side and do your scratch work, 0.6 into 720. Move the decimal once, move the decimal once. And so you should get something like 100, oh, that was 72, sorry. It should be 120 as an answer. Number 6, as always, check your work and your answer. 1,000 centimeters squared is two-dimensional, so you'll have to convert 2 dimensions to centimeters, from centimeters to meters. So you should have 1 unit multiplier with centimeters on bottom and 1 meter on top, and another unit multiplier with 100 centimeters on bottom, 1 meter on top, so that both dimensions convert. Excuse me. And then when you divide 1,000 by 100 and 100, you're going to move the decimal 4 times. That finally puts it at 0.1 meters squared. The whole point is converting units. So if you don't have units in every one of those places, then mark it wrong. That is the whole idea. It is not just about the numbers. It's about the units. Okay, number 6. Hopefully, you're getting better at these. Your surface area formula is 2 times the area of the base plus perimeter of the base times the height. You already had the area of the base in this problem, so you're just plugging in 60 for the area of the base. You did have to go and find the perimeter. Do you have 36 for the perimeter and 11 for the height? If you are looking at your work and you can't even tell if you have those, then your work is not good, and you need to organize it better. All right. After that, continuing on, you should get 516 meters squared. It is wrong, sadly, if you forgot the units. Number 10, your conversion or your equation is 8/13 times w or x, whatever variable you wanted to use, equals 16. First check that. Then check, did you use the reciprocal next to the equation, showing good algebra? And then finally, third thing to check is the answer. Did you get your variable equals 26? Number 12, 1% of 90. Remember, 1% means 1/100th. 1/100th means divide by 100. Divide by 100 means move the decimal twice. And so 1% of 90 is 0.9 or 0.9. 77% of 90, well, 77% is 77 hundredths, which means 0.77. Multiply 0.77 times 90, you get 69.3. Number 14, showing good algebra, you should get x is 25/6. It does reduce. If you left it 50/12, mark it wrong. You need to reduce. Number 16, we talked about yesterday. You should have cross multiplied 5y equals 12. Shown good algebra, dividing by 5 on both sides. Y equals 12/5. Always answer with the variable. Cross multiply, algebra, answer. 18, order of operations is 20. 20 is 11/12. 22, you had to do a little bit of borrowing. It is 17 and 11/15. Oh, no, you didn't have to borrow. Sorry. 17 and 11/15. 24, that was pretty gross. Even with a little bit of canceling, it was still 2,205 over 16. Number 26, you should be working down, not across like I am. So you should be, oops, darn it, you get the idea. Keep working down, don't do this silly stuff like I'm doing. Your final answer should be 41/36. Okay? Number 28 is 26. 26 and 30. 4 answers, 1.0 or 1 times 10 to the 5th, 7.2 times 10 to the negative 3rd, 320,000, and 32 millionths for 0.000032. Okay, if you need one repeated, ask the sub or ask somebody around you for an answer. Total up how many you missed. Pass the papers to the front of the row, and the sub will come around and collect those papers. Pause the video while that's all going on, and then get out your notes. Okay, so get out your notes, please. This is a super duper important lesson. There are 3 types of parts of numbers. You could use decimals, fractions, or percents. You need to be good with all 3, and you need to be able to go from one to the other. This is important life skill. Right? So, would you write that title down? Date your notes is 12/1. And then we're going to do really just a column of 6 examples, always saying what we're going to convert, how we do it, and an example. If I go too fast, would you please ask the sub to say pause that for a second? All right. Let's start by saying we wanted to go from decimals to fraction. To go from a decimal to a fraction, let's go over to example 1 and say I had 0.423. Well, what would we do? I hope you would use place value and then reduce if necessary. Write that down. To convert a decimal to a fraction, we're going to use place value and reduce if we can. So if the question was 0.432 to a fraction, then we would say, all right, based on the place value, this is tenths, hundreds, thousands. So another way to write this or say this is 423 thousandths. After that, I would see if I could reduce that. Now, the factors of 1,000 are 2 and 5. I know 2 doesn't go into 423, and 5 doesn't go into 423. So in this case, I can't reduce it. I would say I'm done. So far, so good. Moving on to the next example. Let's go decimal to percents. Say example 2 was 0.815 to a percent. Now, this is really easy. I'll do the steps in a second. But remember, percent means how many hundreds per hundred. Well, if I looked at the hundreds here, in the hundreds, it is 81 and a little more hundredths. That is to say then that 0.815 is 81.5%. So when you go to make a decimal into a percent, you're just saying, well, if I'm talking about the hundreds, then it really means just move the decimal point 2 times to the right. Now, you don't need to write these down, but just real quick, check for understanding. What if I had 0.7? Well, if I move the decimal to the right, then it's 70%. What if I had 0.03? I move the decimal 2 times to the right, and it's 3%. 3 hundredths, 3%. That's all logical. So just move the decimal 2 times to the right, and you're good to go. Easy. All right. Let's go on to another conversion. Let's go fractions to decimals. For example, if I had 3/7 and I wanted to make it as a decimal. Now we've done this before. Hopefully you can all tell me the step. What do, everybody? That's right, divide the bottom into the top. I'm sure you all said that, yeah? Or the denominator into the numerator. So if I take 7 into 3, I will obviously have to put a decimal point behind the 3 and some zeros. And then for my answer, I'll put the decimal point for my answer directly above where that decimal point is in the box. And then I start dividing. 7 does not go into 3, but it does go into 30 4 times. If I multiply and then subtract, I get 7 into 20, which is 2 times. Subtract 7 into 60, 8 times. Now, truth be told, every fraction, when you divide it, must eventually repeat or terminate. Sometimes that can take a while. For example, this will take 6 digits repeating before you see a pattern. If that's the case, if you get to 3 decimals and you're not seeing it starting to repeat or end, then you can round it to 2. So I would say 3/7 is approximately 0.43. Right? So divide the bottom into the top, go until it stops, or you see a pattern, or stop at 3 and round back to 2. Got it? All right. Example or case 4. Fraction to percent. Say example 4 was 3/8, and I make it a percent. 2%. This to me is the nastiest one. It goes something like this. I can do fraction to decimal. I just learned how to do that. And I know from the second row how to go decimal to percent. I just moved the decimal. So that's my plan here. I'm going to divide to make a decimal, then move the decimal point to make it a percent. So, for example, if I wanted to say 3/8, what kind of percent would that be? Well, I know it's less than half, so I'd expect a number less than 50%. So something less than 50%, right? So I could start by dividing 8 into 3. If I divide 8 into 3, 8 goes into 3, no, but into 30 3 times, and into 67 times, and into 45 times. Now I know then 3/8 as a decimal is 30.375. Now I'm going to move the decimal point to make it a percent. If I move the decimal twice, then it's 37.5. You follow? Alrighty. I've gone decimal to fractions or percents. I've gone fractions to decimals, fractions to percents. The last thing I have to be able to do is go percents to. Let's go purple here. Let's go percent to fraction. Say example 5 is 32% to a fraction. Now remember, key to this is easy. What does percent mean? Percent means per 100. So you just put the percent over 100 and reduce. 32% is 32 per 100. Cent is century, cents. 32 hundredths. Now reduce that. 32 hundredths reduces by 2 and 2 again, or by 4 to 8 25ths. 32% is the same as 8 25ths. All right, finally, let's go to percent to decimal. This also is super duper easy. If I say 32, let's go. Yeah, sure, why not? 32% to a decimal. Well, remember, percent means hundredths. So 32% is the same as 32 hundredths, which as a decimal is 0.32. Now cutting out the middleman of the fraction, it looks like to make a percent a decimal, we move the decimal 2 times to the left. Instead of like when we did decimals to percents, we moved it 2 times to the right. So you just move the decimal point 2 times left. So, for example, if I said, hey, what's 4% as a decimal? It's 12.04. If I said, what's 100% as a decimal? It's 121.0. All of it. Yeah? All right. Hopefully those examples went well. Now let me show you what the book will look like. This will be practice in a second, but hang on a second. All right, the book will say something like this. Complete the table. Begin by inserting the reference numbers. Ignore the inserting the reference numbers part. It tends to confuse students, so we don't do that. So this row, we're not going to do anything about inserting the reference numbers. We're just going to find the A, the B, the C, and the D in the table. Now, A then means they're giving you the fraction of 1/8. What's the decimal form of that? So, would you make 1/8 the decimal? Go. Okay. Did you get 0.125? Because I divide 8 into 1, which is something like that. So 0.125. All right, next, CB is make 1/8 a percent. Hey, if you know what you're doing, you should be good. If 0.125 is the decimal, then to make it a percent, I just move the decimal twice to the right, so it's 12.5%. When you're going from decimals to percents, you're just moving decimal places. It's easiest. Okay? Try C. C is take the decimal 0.22 and make it a fraction. Okay, hopefully you're using place value. 0.22 is the same as 22 hundredths because this ends in the hundredths place. And then reduce it. Don't forget to reduce. 11/50ths. How'd that go? Okay. And then D is take 0.22 and make it a percent. Okay, you're just moving the decimal. 0.22 is 22 hundredths. Hundredths is the same as percents. So 0.22 is 22%. All right, that is that. Hopefully that went well. We'll talk about it on Friday. And that is it. Now if the sub would pass out the problem set, you guys get your books out and work on the problem set for the rest of class. I will see you on Friday.